Now, this chapter of Cerelyn C.J. Davis's history is really insane. Davis was also fired from Atlanta police in 2008 after becoming embroiled in a child pornography case involving another officer. She was involved in the botched investigation of Sergeant Tanya Crane's husband, Terrell Marion Crane, who later turned out to be guilty. Two detectives on the case accused Davis, who was a deputy chief at the time, of urging them not to dig into the claims against Crane after the unit received pictures of him with underage middle school girls. Crane's wife, who was a sergeant working with Davis, also admitted to finding and burning some of the child porn photographs her husband had taken of the victims. Davis was demoted from major to lieutenant before ultimately being fired, before challenging the decision and being reinstated. Amazing. After that level of corruption, Atlanta PD reinstated her and put her back on the force. Wow. During yesterday's live stream, where we had a conversation surrounding why the media was covering and hiding the identity of the 7th Scorpion Unit officer that was involved in the death of Tyre Nichols, many of you were in the live chat telling me, TD, you need to look into the history of Cerelyn C.J. Davis. You have to look into her past. This was a comment that I repeatedly saw appear over and over and over again throughout the duration of the live stream. And once the stream was over, I did just that. I looked into Cerelyn Davis's past, and all I have to say is wow. The top cop behind the Scorpion Unit, disbanded after its officers were charged in the death of Tyre Nichols, previously led another controversial unit that too was shut down. Memphis Police Chief Cerelyn Davis launched the elite team Scorpion Unit in 2021, which was made up of 40 officers. Davis was previously in charge of the infamous Red Dog Unit while working at Atlanta Police, where she was also embroiled in a child pornography scandal. It was disbanded over accusations of excessive force and police brutality. The Red Dog Unit, which stands for Running Every Drug Dealer Out of Georgia, was one of at least 11 run by Davis when she was a commander. It has many similarities to the Scorpion Unit in Memphis, which was made up of 40 officers split into 4 teams who patrolled high crime hotspots throughout the city. Red Dog was disbanded in 2011 by Mayor Cassim Reed after officers raided a gay bar and used excessive force, while others were accused of assaulting a man they pulled over in a traffic stop. Wow, now that sounds a lot like Tyre Nichols, doesn't it? During the raid, those at the bar complained that they were treated with aggression and forced to lay on the floor for over an hour as officers swore and used racist and homophobic slurs. The city of Atlanta settled a federal lawsuit with those affected by the raid in December 2010 for $1 million, which included reforms to Atlanta Police Department's operating procedures. Now, what people have to understand about these specialized units is that these specialized units are allowed to conduct themselves in a fashion that most police officers are not allowed to. They're given a longer leash to abuse the people in the community in order to weed out the bad ones. But what happens with this metaphorical leash is that these units become the equivalent of a rabid dog that has now been let off the leash. And once off the leash, he is running around, barking at and biting everyone, until eventually that rabid dog mauls someone to death. And then you will see that's when the owner will now all of a sudden make the decision to say, well, I guess we should actually put this dog down. And this is commonplace with these specialized units, as I'm going to show you here with this quick CNN video, where it just shows you a very quick and brief history of how these units always exist up until they kill someone unjustifiably. Then now all of a sudden, hey, you know what? I guess this unit was a bad idea after all.
Specialized units have existed in most of America's 70 major cities, often driving police arrest stats and generating PR opportunities for politicians eager to appear tough on crime.
I'm glad to hear that the unit's been disbanded. I think we should probably be taking a serious look at these specialized units, both in Memphis and around the country.
This kind of so-called elite police squad is not a new idea.
So some cities are taking on drug dealers with urban commando teams with intimidating names like Crash, Dart, TNT, and in Atlanta, Red Dog.
Show me hands, get on your knees.
Atlanta's Red Dog unit started in the 1980s. Officers went on high-risk raids and patrolled public housing. It was politically popular, but was disbanded in 2011 after years of complaints over its tactics. In 2021, facing a new spike in crime, Atlanta PD launched its latest specialized Titan unit.
We believe that the direction that they will have to be more aggressive as it relates to what street violence that we are up against, but it is no way to replace what Red Dog was.
In New York, the NYPD's street crime unit was launched in the 1970s with the motto, "We own the night." The unit faced controversy in 1999 after 4 plainclothes officers fired 41 shots at Amadou Diallo, an unarmed 23-year-old student outside his apartment building in the Bronx, claiming he fit the description of a man wanted for rape. The officers who shot Diallo were found not guilty. The unit was disbanded in 2002 after a federal investigation uncovered racial profiling. In 2020, the NYPD disbanded all of its plainclothes anti-crime units, the kind responsible for the chokehold death of Eric Garner. New York City Mayor and former police officer Eric Adams told CNN on Monday, specialized units aren't inherently bad.
Units don't create abuse. Abusive behavior creates abuse.
Nearly 25 years later, Amadou Diallo's mother is still fighting to change police practices.
I have to hold my heart and I have to let them know that this is a club that we wish we never had to welcome them. And this is a club that no families want to be part of.
From Philadelphia to Baltimore and Indianapolis, Memphis is the latest example of an all-too-common cycle. Crime rises, police create an aggressive unit that delivers an increase in arrests. Then comes scandal or tragedy.
Now let's get back to what happened with the Red Dog unit after their raid at the LGBTQ bar, where they harassed everyone, put them on the floor for an hour, and beat people that were in their car, claiming that it was just an innocent traffic stop gone awry. So here's what happened after the lawsuit came down. It demanded that there should be no more illegal search and seizures and an internal investigation into all officers involved. At least 10 complaints were formally lodged against the department alleging misconduct during the raid and turned over the agency's Office of Professional Standards or Internal Affairs unit. Activist Hunter Dempster, who is an organizer with Decarcerate Memphis, said that there were many similarities between the Red Dog Squad and the Scorpion Unit. He told DailyMail.com, and here's a direct quote, "They are literally an oppression force. The trust between the citizens and the police in Memphis is about as bad as you could ever imagine in a metropolitan city. They are unchecked doom squads, which can do whatever they want. Davis's Red Dog unit was disbanded, so how are you going to take the same premise of a disbanded unit to your new job? Davis is doing her best to say all of the best social justice buzzwords and accountability, but she is just giving lip service and empty promises and trying to make herself look good. It shouldn't take someone dying for something to happen. They are violent bullies who pull you over, wave a gun in your face, and beat you up. They terrorize poor black and brown communities." Now that's where the brother lost me. Once again, I don't know what it is about anytime something happens to black people, we automatically turn into a black and brown issue. I really wish we would stop doing that. There is no such thing as black and brown issues. This is clearly a black American issue in black American communities. Brown has absolutely nothing to do with this, but I digress. The Red Dog unit was created in 1987 and named after the football movie of blitzing a quarterback, with the intention to pressure drug dealers, users, and criminals associated with drug violence. Davis was promoted to deputy chief in 2014 after Red Dog was disbanded and oversaw strategy and special project division. The unit was also responsible for the death of Katherine Johnston, 92 years old, who was shot dead during a no-knock raid in 2006. Sounds a lot like Breonna Taylor now, doesn't it? Police officers from the narcotics unit, which was later rebranded, burst into her home and shot her 5 times after reports of drug dealing at the property. It is unclear if she was in charge of the unit at the time in 2006, with 3 former police officers charged with voluntary manslaughter and making false statements. Wow, now that really sounds a lot like Breonna Taylor. Prosecutors have said that the officers regularly presented false information to obtain warrants and that they cut corners to make more time for lucrative side jobs, providing additional security to businesses, often while on duty and receiving cash payments. The Scorpion team was created in November of 2021 as part of a crackdown on violent crime by Davis. So Cerelyn Davis took a failed oppressive unit that was disbanded in Atlanta and brought it over to Memphis, and now here we are with the death of Tyre Nichols. If you ask me, I think that Cerelyn C.J. Davis needs to be held accountable for this as well, because the history behind these kind of units are very clear, and the thought that she would take an oppressive unit that already was disbanded in Atlanta and bring that over to Memphis that now led to the death of Tyre Nichols, in my opinion, means that she should face some sort of punishment for this. In the statement announcing the unit's deactivation, the Memphis Police Department said it remains committed to serving our community and taking every measure possible to rebuild the trust that has been negatively affected by Nichols' death. They added, while the heinous actions of a few cast a cloud of dishonor over the title Scorpion, it is imperative that we, the Memphis Police Department, take proactive steps in the healing process for all impacted. Lawyers for Nichols' family said in a statement that the disbanding of the unit was both appropriate and proportional to the tragic death of Tyre Nichols, and also a decent and just decision for all citizens of Memphis. Now, this chapter of Cerelyn C.J. Davis's history is really insane. Davis was also fired from Atlanta police in 2008 after becoming embroiled in a child pornography case involving another officer. She was involved in the botched investigation of Sergeant Tanya Crane's husband, Terrell Marion Crane, who later turned out to be guilty. Two detectives on the case accused Davis, who was a deputy chief at the time, of urging them not to dig into the claims against Crane after the unit received pictures of him with underage middle school girls. Crane's wife, who was a sergeant working with Davis, also admitted to finding and burning some of the child porn photographs her husband had taken of the victims. Davis was demoted from major to lieutenant before ultimately being fired, before challenging the decision and being reinstated. Amazing. After that level of corruption, Atlanta PD reinstated her and put her back on the force. Wow. She then retired from the force in 2016 and took up a role as police chief in Durham, North Carolina, calling for sweeping police reform despite her previous botched job in Atlanta. Now, this is the characteristic of a truly wicked person, right? Because when you look at the level of controversy that followed her from Atlanta, from her covering up a child porn scandal to heading Red Dog units that were actively oppressing the very people that they're supposed to be protecting in their community, she then retires from that police department, takes on a role as police chief in Durham, North Carolina, and reinvents herself as someone who's calling for sweeping police reform. That's called covering your tracks. Let me get out in front of my past by acting like I'm the police chief that's all about police reform. And she's literally doing the same thing now with the case of Tyre Nichols. Given her past and given how corrupt the Scorpion unit was, the police cam footage was released. The very next day, she was all about accountability and sweeping reform by disbanding the Scorpion unit and looking deeply and intensively into the officers who were involved. Because that's just who she is. No, that is not who she is. This woman is as corrupt as the very cops that beat Tyre Nichols to death. Now, at the end of the day, those 5 officers that beat Tyre Nichols to death deserve the absolute worst punishment that they can possibly get under the law. But if you ask me, in my opinion, a woman as corrupt as Cerelyn C.J. Davis deserves a little punishment to come her way as well. Because if it wasn't for her creating this oppressive unit that was disbanded in Atlanta, that she headed over there, then Tyre would still be alive and would have never been attacked by this Scorpion unit the same way the Red Dog unit in Atlanta was attacking people, pulling them out of their cars and beating them up as well. And with all that they are. And with all that being said, that does it for today's video. So please make sure you hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. All social media links will be pinned in the comment section below. And also, please make sure you text TD-HIPHOP to number 33222. That's TD-HIPHOP to number 33222. That way you'll get a text notification whenever I release a new video, but it also serves as an insurance plan for myself, so in case YouTube ever gives me the axe, I'll be able to send you a direct link to where you can find me next. And last but certainly not least, for those of you who have a love and appreciation for the work that I put in on this channel, the number one way you can show your support is through Patreon. For only $3 a month, that will help put me in position to take TD-HIPHOP Media off of YouTube. Remember, the goal is not to grow big on YouTube, but to grow independent of YouTube. And for those of you who have issues with joining Patreon, you can also hit the join button that's next to the subscribe button, and that way you can become an official channel member for as little as $3 a month as well. And lastly, if you haven't already, please make sure you join the emailing list. There is no way that I can go independent of YouTube if I cannot take the audience with me. And the link to that will be pinned in the comment section as well. Thank you for your time, and until the next video, peace.